On the morning drive here at Mirror Business FM next, regional tensions have caused significant disruption across the UAE. Operations are affected at Dubai International Airport. At the same time, a fire caused by debris from an aerial interception was contained at Jebel port. Now, while authorities moved swiftly to secure both hubs, the logistics impact is immediate, from grounded cargo aircraft and rerouted freight corridors to potential vessel delays, insurance reassessments as well. Now, for a region that serves as a global transshipment and re-export centre, even short-term interruptions can ripple across inventory cycles, delivery schedules, and freight pricing. It's a lot to discuss and unpack. So joining me now, Abigail Mathias is the editor of Global Supply Chain magazine. Here to break down how logistics networks absorb shocks like this, and also what it means for transport costs, for capacity, and for supply continuity across the Gulf. Abigail, it's good to have you on. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Tim, and good morning to your team.
Good morning. So, working from home today, I'm sure. In the first 24 to 72 hours, Abigail, after an airspace disruption, the likes of which we have seen, of course, what are logistics teams prioritizing behind the scenes?
Yes, that's a good question. I think in the first 24 to 72 hours, which are very critical, the priority is to stabilize the network, protect high-value cargo, and re-establish predictable flows. The early window is the most chaotic, and the actions taken here determine how quickly the wider supply chain will recover. So most logistics companies assess closures and reroutes. Teams map out which airports and air corridors are shut down and identify viable alternative routes. Airlines also ground flights and divert them to longer corridors. At this point, securing cargo already in transit is very critical. So freight that is at affected hubs, just like is happening right now in the Gulf region, must be held, redirected, or moved to safer storage spaces. These hubs handle large volumes, as you can imagine, of high-value goods like electronics, semiconductors, pharma material. This is a very critical stage because communicating with shippers is also important. Teams issue advisories about delays, capacity constraints, and expected bottlenecks. So it's important right now, while these disruptions are taking place, to acknowledge that there will be delays affecting the global supply chain. And the major hubs are critical arteries for international air cargo. So even a short closure may have ripple consequences. So early action by logistics teams to prevent cascading failures in manufacturing, retail, and e-commerce networks is important.
Abigail, how quickly can air cargo be rerouted when a hub like Dubai faces operational disruption?
Well, air cargo can be rerouted within hours if all goes well, but the speed and effectiveness depends on the scale of the disruption. So if there are alternative hubs in the region that can be used at this time, that would be a very welcome opportunity. When a major hub like Dubai International Airport is affected, the rerouting process becomes both urgent and globally consequential because Dubai is one of the world's busiest cargo transport points. So airlines and freight forwarders typically start rerouting immediately. That's within 1 to 3 hours. Once authorities confirm an operational shutdown of an airspace is going to be deployed. So at this moment, the Dubai airport has suspended operations, as we know, until further notice, following regional tension. Aviation authorities across the Middle East have imposed temporary airspace restrictions, but we are hoping that these will get lifted the moment things stabilize.
Well, we know that Emirates, for example, have suspended operations until at 3 o'clock, I think it is, this afternoon, and I guess assessments are ongoing at the moment. So we'll be keeping people up to date with that. But let me ask you this: when a major port experiences an incident, even if it's contained, how does that affect vessel berthing windows and the handling schedules around containers?
Well, actually, what happens with ports is very similar to what happens with airports. The delays affect ports, and as you can imagine, one port is connected to the next. So rerouting is something that has to take place. Most shipping companies are well aware of the situation that happens, and they try to ensure that they are connected to each other, and they analyze the data that they already have and try to see whether they can open up the ports as soon as possible. Of course, keeping in mind that all critical connections are deployed.
We talk about Dubai as a hub consistently. It's a well-worn phrase, but just how interconnected are air and sea logistics in the UAE? And does disruption in one immediately strain the other?
Yes, I think that's true because, as we know, Dubai is very dependent upon both sea and land connections. We noticed this recently, as recent as maybe a year and a half ago, when there were floods and the airport was closed for a short while due to the flooding. So there is a very close connection between the sea and air. It's just a matter of who is able to be up and running faster that can take the load off from the supply chain network.
Which sectors, Abigail, tend to feel logistics bottlenecks first when you've got a situation where you have both aviation and maritime channels under pressure?
Right. I think it's more the air because we look at air being as the quickest means of getting material out there. And of course, even though it is a more expensive option compared to shipping, it is considered the first option that people use to get logistics moving. So whenever there's a bottleneck within the air routes, it's always considered viable if that can be cleared up as soon as possible to get things moving.
Can I offer you an example? Just get your thoughts. The automotive industry is, I would argue, particularly vulnerable. It relies on, Gulf-sourced feedstocks like ethylene, propylene, polypropylene. The building blocks for, say, car parts. How long until automotive assembly plants in Germany or in the UK, the US, until they might feel the impact of delayed components?
Right. That's a good question. Actually, at the moment, most companies are hoping that this whole disruption sorts itself out as soon as possible, rather than when there's too much of loss, economically and for companies around this region. So there's no proper timeline that you can give to assess the situation. But you're right. It is going to be something that will have to be looked into very closely because very soon companies across the board are going to face disruptions which they don't want to incur.
I guess buffer inventories come into play, but there will be cost increases as a result of that, won't there? Fertilizer was something that was kind of on my mind. I know that the Strait of Hormuz is a key channel. Something like 25 to 35% of the world's ammonia and urea trade. So I suppose similarly, there's a potential, there is an effect if we do see a sustained blockade in any way.
Definitely, there is. In fact, it's a good thing you mentioned the buffer trade because that's something that is always kept in mind for calamities or natural disasters, and we always see that cargo takes the first step to bridge that gap, so to speak. whenever there is a natural disaster or a situation like this of war, of a pandemic, or a situation that's not normal. So yes, there are those resources in place which will be utilized when the time is right, to make sure that the least amount of damage is felt by the supply chain.
And I suppose it really what we're talking about here are the knock-on effects that we hope we don't need to think about, but the knock-on effects are fairly clear. If you can't get fertilizer, that means prices will go up. That could impact wheat seasons, planting seasons, or corn planting seasons. So it's all of these things that are beginning to come to the fore, I guess.
Definitely, and everything affects each other. Though it sounds like a cliche, we all depend on each other. So, of course, one thing is going to affect the next. And fertilizer is a very, very good point. There's also farmer. There's a lot of critical material, critical medicines in place which have to move around, which do move around in normal circumstances. So they have to get from point A to point B. And we're going to face a situation where, since everything is currently on stop mode, reaching vital parts of the world is going to be a situation that comes up, unfortunately, very soon.
What happens to freight rates and fuel surcharges and war risk, insurance premiums in high risk periods, Abigail?
In a nutshell, it just goes up. All the prices for everything just skyrocket purely because of the fact that people are trying very hard to pull at strings and make sure that prices don't rise. But unfortunately, because of market fluctuations and because of the situation, prices will rise. So, as much as possible, people try to hoard on to material, but that is not a better solution, as you may know, because that is just going to make the price rise even faster. So, yes, prices will rise as a result of this.
I know it's Monday morning and it's, kind of the day after the weekend that was, but are you seeing, hearing of logistics providers activating alternative Gulf ports or neighboring air hubs as contingency routes?
Yes, a lot of companies are trying to connect with their own community and people who are in like-minded businesses to see if they can move material at least inbound, if not outbound. That's a very important part of the whole logistics um, framework, wherein communities come together, affiliations come together to see if they can work side by side to move material.
How feasible is shifting time sensitive cargo from air to sea? And what trade offs do companies face in terms of cost versus speed?
Okay, yes, that's a good question. So I think also one of the main things that affects moving from air to sea is that the tariffs change.
Right.
There is a different method of weighing the freight material when it goes by air, and it's a different method of assessing the same material that goes by sea. Of course, going by sea, as we all know, will take much longer than going by air. So that factor has to be tied in. And if it is material that is time sensitive, then that factor has to be taken in as well. Secondly, dangerous goods cannot be passed on by air. There's a certain certification that they have to pass, and only then will they be allowed to be transported by air. But right now, the situation is all, I would say, kind of at a standstill because most of the airspaces are closed. So people are looking to see. Yes.
Okay. Look, this is new territory, but there are precedents. For example, the Red Sea shipping diversions, the pandemic era congestion. There were lessons learned from that. What of those lessons are most relevant to managing the disruption that we're facing right now?
I think the Gulf region is better prepared than it was maybe 5 years ago, but resilience is still uneven and tested frequently. The region has invested heavily in multimodal infrastructure, digital customs, and coordinated crisis planning. Yet recent disruptions show that vulnerabilities remain, especially when air and port interruptions happen at the same time. So, across the GCC, governments and operators have shifted from simply expanding capacity to building resilience. So now they have stronger regional awareness of disruption risk. I can just give you the same example that you mentioned about the Red Sea shipping diversions that happened, and also the pandemic area congestion that happened, and that disrupted the global supply chain markets as well. So these earlier crises had exposed structural weaknesses that are directly applicable to managing today's disruptions. The Red Sea crisis reshaped vessel operations and global shipping networks, showing how geopolitical shocks can instantly alter maritime flows. So rerouting had some consequences on systems. Diverting ships away from the Red Sea and Suez Canal forces longer voyages, but that couldn't be helped. That ripple effect was widely observed as shipping lines adjusted to avoid conflict zones. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, well, it does. I mean, it really is a complicated web that we, I guess we face in the world. But you seem reasonably confident that we're slightly better prepared for interruptions than perhaps we were 5 years ago.
Yes, we are. We are better prepared. Like I said, this is something that supply chains across the world have uh, better equipped themselves with because of the fact that we had a pandemic which suddenly threw everything off gear,
Mm.
and cargo had to step up to be the one to make sure vital vaccines, vital pharmaceutical material, and other medicines were, provided to people which needed it the most. So I think, yes, we have stepped up. This is unnerving. These are unnerving times, but we are better prepared for them, definitely.
It's been great to talk to you, Abigail. I appreciate it. Abigail Mathias is the editor of Global Supply Chain magazine. Thank you for joining us. Stay safe.
Thank you so much, Tim. You stay safe too.
This is Mirror Business FM. Just a reminder, lots of podcasts available from us here. We're also looking at podcasts from as collaborations. Crossroads is a collab between Middlesex University and Mirror Business FM. That's out every Friday. It's the business of entertainment. Dr. David Tully and Dima Magalse. We are looking at automotive matters as well with Jacek Ziamek from X Motors. That's out again every Friday. And then Tuesdays, the fine print with our resident legal expert Raymond Kiswani, trying to demystify the legal landscape of the UAE. That's just a couple of the additional things we're doing. It's the morning drive.